living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Hey, I'm FTFE and welcome back to the channel that ties stupidity in a bag and chucks it in a river. Tonight we have another conversation with somebody who believes that the Earth is concave rather than convex. He's actually sent me a whole bunch of evidence, so we do have things to discuss. I had just another discussion recently with a female concave earther called Elefaki that was actually a really interesting conversation. What I've noticed from talking to concave earthers rather than flat earthers is the actual conversations are usually a lot better. So I hope that you guys will enjoy another decent conversation between me and someone who, we're not calling this a debate, it's a discussion. I think that's the better way to look at these things at the moment. So I will introduce Jacob. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm not bad. Thank you very much for joining me. I do appreciate it. Why don't you just take a few minutes, introduce yourself to the people watching, and explain your position.
Well, I don't like the word concaver. I consider myself someone who understands that the world isn't, or the universe and the Earth are one. So I would consider myself somebody who believes, I guess, in cellular cosmology, or as I've christened it, Sonoluminescence. So my position on this, well, really years ago, whenever I was looking into alternative cosmology, I was just interested because I never really, you know, in school it was just, we just taught something, we're not shown anything. It was, a lot of it was just skepticism, general skepticism, and so what I'd found was several demonstrable evidences or scientific tests, particularly a survey called the rectilineator experiment back in 1897, Naples Beach, Florida. This was over 4 mile long, professionally put together geodetic survey, and the conclusion concavity. 4 years later, in two lines about 1.5 miles were hung with plumb bombs in a Michigan, a number of feet apart from each other, and there was divergence at the bottom of the line. So just cheaper. He didn't know what to explain of it. It was to his dismay. 4 years earlier, there was the rectilineator. So there was talk around, you know, oh, what the hell were we dealing with? So when they removed the air, a lot of people say it's because of the airflow and where they put the lines down. It's still very slight, but only 1.5 miles long each, so there's not going to be a big divergence. With the rectilineator, it was done from what I researched. So I took in account, being from somebody who worked a lot of live outdoor stuff, a lot of stuff in my hands, I take into account a lot of demonstrable science and experiments and list of other things that the reason why I believe what I do. Sonoluminescence, light in water, or sound creating light in liquid, what sonoluminescence is less. So if you ever look at a star and jar experiment or anything like sonar fusion, frequency actually water liquid or fluid can create a bubble with light inside. Sonoluminescence is something that was recently discovered in 1934, so somewhat recently, at the University of Cologne during sonar work, and it's something the reckon, you know, Cyrus Teeds, other cosmogony and everything. So it's a newer sort of thing to throw in there to consider that we're actually a cavitation bubble generated by sound frequency rather than inside an egg or a cell, you know, how like that they compare with the stellar cosmology, but inside something that's sound produced, and the sun being the plasma, the same thing that's created in a sonoluminescent bubble. It's actually plasma. So out of frequency and fluid, a little spot bubble is plasma. It just created from those simple things. So given the all of creation and the idea of divine, frequency and something more intricate, it's easier to, physical things or things with more density, more rigid, would be the permeation of material into objects and things that we see and things all around us. And as you go closer to the source, you get into the more ethereal, of course, from the source, and, the more numinous, the more physical, where we can't actually travel too far because we're not designed, kind of like fish being brought up from the depths and then exploding as the pressure changes, as things change. It's not to handle that environment. I just don't think that we're designed to handle anything maybe above 300, maybe a little bit more than 300 miles high. So that's my position. I do think that we're inside something, and I think that there's several experiments that pretty much conclude that we are. However, I'm here to listen to also heliocentric thoughts because I'm always wanting to learn. So that's it.
Okay, thanks for that. So, obviously, I have a lot of questions about the nature of the things that you're saying. The rectilinear experiment, I think, has been debunked quite conclusively. But one of the main counters to yeah, I mean, there's plenty online to talk about it. But my main counter to the rectilinear experiment is actually LIGO, and the fact that LIGO demonstrates that the Earth is falling away from a tangent. So this is one of the LIGO institutions in America, and the red lines are 4-kilometer tubes that are vacuum tubes with a laser inside that shoots straight. Obviously, it's in a vacuum. There's nothing to bend the light. Running alongside a waterway, which we know water is level compared to the Earth. And when they built LIGO, they had to, at the end of these 4-kilometer tubes, they had to precision pour cement to make sure that it was able to stay straight. They actually found that the Earth fell away from the tangent by over a meter. And the fact that it's next to water kind of demonstrates that, it's not anything to do with variations in the land and anything. So that is my counter to the rectilinear experiment. A lot of I can't remember the guy's name that did the rectilinear experiment, but he didn't take into account a lot of effects of light and everything. And
Ulysses Mora and Cyrus T. Ulysses Mora and Cyrus T. Sorry.
So modern day, we're able to make measurements a lot more accurately than we could back then. I know the rectilinear experiment actually excited a lot of scientific conversation, but when you actually look at modern day ways to look at the world, like all surveyors use something called a spherical excess when they're taking their measurements, which means they have to take into account the curve of the Earth based on what their job is. And I think modern measurements allow us to actually map the world a lot more accurately, and LIGO is an excellent demonstration of that.
Let me just say, I actually looked into that website. I read maybe 1/4 of it, but what I read, I kind of really concentrated. And LIGO, it's like laser
interferometer,
gravitational wave observatory, right?
Yeah.
So I noticed, because I'm a skeptic, and I'm presenting my, I guess, counter to what you've said, is that it's designed to read gravitational waves, correct?
Yes, it is extremely accurate. That's the whole point of it having to be completely straight, is that it then can pick up disturbances in space-time caused by gravitational waves.
Okay, so it's the gravitational waves above, not below?
No, it's gravitational waves from out in space. They can even pinpoint the direction of where it comes from. The LIGO in America aren't the only ones. There's I think there's 2 in China. There's 1 in Italy, and they can kind of use all these different LIGO.
2 in America?
There's 2 in America. Yeah, 2 LIGO in America, and they can use the different positions of the LIGO, and then from that triangulate a position in space where it's coming from. They would know quite obviously if it was coming from below.
So, but the whole gravity is what we're told is its mass attraction. Do you stand by that, mass attraction?
Well, if you're talking in a purely classical Newtonian sense, then yes, we know that it's not really a force of attraction. That is the attractive force is an emergent property of the curvature of space-time. So a large mass will distort space-time in such a way that makes other masses fall in towards it, and that falling in towards it, that acceleration, is what we experience as an accelerating force. Yes, it can be described as an attractive force between all masses, because for general engineering and for doing basic calculations, that's exactly what it is. But that force is actually a consequence of something else happening.
I wish I'd have sent you a picture, because one comes to mind that would demonstrate kind of how I think that an easy demonstration of how we light at a bend from a ship or a missile, which what it was, but it was a flight. It was something taking flight. I think it was a missile, and it was on a set trajectory, and it climbed the same altitude. It was proven through, I guess it was just it was something that I saw where it was climbing at the same, and but from our point of view, it looks like it's swirling. It looks like it's actually curved as it's going straight.
Oh, you mean like rockets going into space look like they curve, kind of thing?
Yeah, it's similar to that, but this in particular was one that was actually shown to be, it was in the picture, it was described actually going at the same elevation, like it's taking off and it's climbing at the same rate. It should appear to our eye, granted everything we've been told, that it looks like a straight line, but it doesn't. It looks like it's curving, but it's apparently going at the same elevation, rising at the same. So it was a pretty cool observation, and of course that could be off.
With gravity, though?
Well, I was just about light, because my question about the LIGO was what it's designed for. It's designed to read.
Yeah, it's designed
from
to
space,
register
from
gravitational
above,
waves.
gravitational waves. So if something together and the main purpose of it is to read gravitational waves.
Yes, that is literally what LIGO is for. It's a humongous interferometer that is extremely accurate and can literally detect perturbations in space-time.
My whole question about its construction would be, whenever do you know anything about how it got started, or how they actually constructed it? Because it didn't really have information that I saw online about it.
Well,
and that's a big.
There's quite a lot of information about the construction of it, and the fact that it took over 20 years to calibrate them. I mean, just on the LIGO website, they go into the construction of it and the precision pouring of cement and why they had to do that and everything.
So I guess where I'm going with this is set up on two gravitational waves, not as a geodetic survey. Not to get the level.
That's not what it's for. But the fact that the nature of light traveling in a straight line, especially in a vacuum, which, these are, I think it's the two LIGO institutions in America actually have the third largest vacuum chambers in the world on them, because it's like a straight line, 4 kilometers of vacuum. So the laser inside goes in a completely straight line, which happens to be a tangent to the sphere of the Earth. And based on the fact that light is going in a completely straight line, and that at one end the Earth has literally fallen away from that straight line, gives us a pretty good indication of what shape the planet is.
Well, if you believe that light moves in straight line, which is not part of the stellar cosmology, it's the understanding that light finds its way back home, which is up, which it's going to. So I mean, that's the whole understanding of stellar cosmology, is it's curving faster than the actual incline of the Earth. Or that's why there's a horizon cutoff line. That's why we're able to see further 20 plus miles away when we have a high zoom camera. That's why all the Fata Morgana pictures 10, 20, 30 miles away, things that ought to be buried by even water landlines, buried by dozens of feet of convex curvature, are visible.
Well, and refraction's the thing.
Come on.
And if you're looking at 20 miles, then you've got 0.23 degrees, I think, of that light would have to bend, which isn't very much. Standard refraction gives us about 0.5% of a degree. So to be able to see something at 20 miles is perfectly explainable with standard refraction. We know that light refracts. We know that a change in the density of a medium will cause light to refract and bend. And obviously on a globe, if the light is bending down as it's going into the more dense medium, it's going to allow us to see what is over the curve.
It just sounds fantastical to me to think that light is pulling up an image dozens of feet, if not but 100 feet in some cases. It sounds to me like science fiction.
I mean, refraction is easily demonstratable.
Yeah, but I'm not saying refraction is not a thing, but if we're looking at a Saylor cosmology model and leaning back up towards the center, the refraction is keeping us from, like Josh was saying, is keeping us from seeing further because it's how the light's bending. It's not fiber optics. You're on a certain line of sight, and you're not going to see further than that because unless you're up higher. And then you're on a different line of sight because you're in a different the light itself has its properties.
But
it's not as if you're saying all light moves in a straight line, and that's provably
naturally
incorrect.
Yeah, the natural physics of light is for it to go in a straight line unless in a vacuum. That's the important thing. In a vacuum, light will always go in a straight line, and that's demonstrated by LIGO. The fact that LIGO is a 4-kilometer straight vacuum and the light travels completely straight in it without even the nanomillimeter of difference.
Can you tell me why in a vacuum light would change its trajectory from its normal path? I mean,
it wouldn't. In a vacuum, light will always travel in a straight line.
No, I'm saying from its path. It's just entertaining the idea that that light is actually traveling. It's curving back up at a faster clip once it gets to horizontal than the curvature, the incline of the Earth. This is the case. If that's the case, and there's an etheric, and I know that Skeptic was saying he knew I was going to bring up. I guess he's pretty good. But when we're talking atmospheric medium for light to travel through, it's not as if there's no atmosphere. It's not as if there's no space there. Laser exists, and it's the light's traveling through it. Therefore, it has to have some sort of properties within itself. It has to have it cannot be in a complete because then you wouldn't have light. They already say sound in there, so you can't have sound. Okay, well, light is a close relative to sound, but you can have it there. To me, that's just light and sound are two pieces in a pot. You can't. You're gonna have sound, but you can't have
one
light.
Sec. Would any chance you could just leave the call and then join again because the connection seems a bit spotty and you keep cutting out a little bit. Would you mind just exiting the call and then join back on the same link quickly?
Yeah, sure.
All right, thanks. Sorry guys, just while he does that, I'll just read out the super chats that we've had. I've got a new member again. Thank you very much, Marco. I'm not going to even try and ruin your surname. I don't want to insult you, but thank you very much, Marco. Welcome to the Scrappers. Isla Moon for $2 just says smiley face. Thank you very much. And Conspiratard for £2. Is it time to change the channel to FTCCE? I think I just tried to fight all stupidity, to be honest. We're going to get into what he was just saying there about light and sound being very similar because light isn't really a wave, so that's kind of the point there that I wanted to make. Just wait till he joins back up, so that he did keep cutting out, and I know that can be quite annoying to listen to. So if you just bear with me while he gets back. But yeah, if the Earth was concave, wouldn't we see something like this? That's kind of that's from Halo, obviously, on a big ring. Right, he's just joining back up. Okay, you there?
Hopefully this is better.
Yeah, that does sound better. Sorry, it just it was clipping a little bit, so I know that'd be a little bit annoying for the audience. So what you were saying there was that sound and light are similar, right?
Yeah, they're from the same. It's similar. Yeah, it's cousins.
In the sense that light can be described as a wave.
Yes, all light. Yes.
I mean, it can be described as a wave, but it's not really a wave. The double slit experiment, the quantum eraser experiment, all show that light is actually a particle that acts as a wave. That is, we see it based on its quantum probability of where it would be in. But no, light isn't specifically a wave, and it's been demonstrated that light doesn't need a medium to travel through. In the fact that a laser light can travel through a vacuum. So if I think your point there is that light should need a medium, right?
Well, the fact that that space inside that vacuum exists for the light in there, that it's not nothing, then it's significant. I mean, it's not. That's the thing about Sagnac, understanding of and all this. The idea of an etheric atmosphere, if you remove all the impurities, it's still space. It's still there. It's something for light to travel through. And what we know about space, whether it's inner or outer or whatever you want to call it, is not nearly as much as what NASA and what all they're saying. They say they don't even have the technology to go back to the moon. I mean,
no, that's not what they really say. What they say is they don't have that technology from the 60s. That technology is irrelevant now and isn't used anymore. We don't have the things that we made there, but what we have now is new technology that can get us into space. I mean, there's literally a whole bunch of private companies that are creating new technology to get us further and further and more safely into space.
I guess my whole thing is that I don't big corporation, big Hollywood, big capital S science. I don't trust it because there's a lot of profits there, and it's a lot of reason for it to continue. I mean, there's not that much reason to tell the truth if it is something else. I know
that's surely just an assumption, though. When you're looking at what they're doing, either all the private agencies at the moment are basically saying, oh, well, they're going to send stuff to the moon in advance of NASA's return to the moon. And these are things that you can see happening. With the private space flight and civilians being able to go into space, they're adding a civilian section to the ISS. There's space hotels that they're designing and building. All these things are literally coming up and are around the corner. This year, you can book yourself on to Blue Origin's suborbital flight if you have the money.
Yeah. I don't not believe in space. That's the thing is a lot of other technology guys and girls. It's not that we don't believe in space. It's just that it's. I mean, you really think that they're getting us back from things that are millions away and discovering things that are that far? Whenever the actual to come back would require a lot more time, to put it lightly. I don't understand how that's a rational.
Sorry, could
belief.
you repeat that? I don't know what you meant there.
Well, the idea that things are so far away, thousands, if not million years, and that we're actually getting readbacks on things away.
Well, yeah, because light's always traveling.
Am I incorrect on that?
I mean, light's always traveling. So, we look at the early universe. The CMB, for instance.
We're not immediate. So the stars, everything up above, other than the sun and the moon that aren't that far, in the heliocentric model. What you're saying is we're seeing things that are just millions of years old.
Yeah,
and they're that far away.
The further you look into space, the older the light is, and you can tell that's the case by certain redshift of things if they're moving away, and the cosmic microwave background radiation is I suppose the biggest example of this, because we can look back and trace that back to the point of where it came about 370,000 years after the Big Bang during the recombination event. Was the point where the universe cooled enough that protons and electrons could combine and form hydrogen atoms, and when an electron moves from a high energy state to a low energy state, it emits photons, and that's what happened at what they call the recombination event and photon decoupling. We can tell when that happened because it's literally all over the universe, and it actually gives us an idea of the distribution of mass throughout the universe as well.
So, but the presumption is that it's a big expansive thing, with it's all, and I hate to say this word because I said in the comments, if you're basing your ideas off something you think is already the case, then everything you're gonna build your world around. You're gonna build everything around the presupposition of it being a certain way. So when we're going by actual geodetic survey, the only one ever done to actually survey the Earth for its shape was the rectilineator. You can have all these newer stuff, but if they're not set up as a geodetic survey to actually get the shape of the ground, and if they're using
that's
light,
what geodetic surveyors do. Their literal job is to survey the land, and anybody that is an actual geodetic surveyor has to calculate in the spherical excess to be able to do their job. And all measurements that we do now tell us that the Earth is a sphere.
They're going by lasers, right? They're going by light. They're not going by planks that are set like the rectilineator was an elaborate, rigid test. It was something that they had plumb bobs, they had lines, they had these planks that they reversed it. The what do you call every other one they turned it upside down so it would discount for the variable of a sag. There's a lot of work that went into that, and to just say it's debunked.
I mean, it literally is. I mean, I haven't looked into it as much as I need to, because I think that's one of the big talking points for a concave cosmology. But everything I've read explains how he was working on some faulty assumptions, and when you look at what he did now, it's easily explainable. But again, I'm not going to talk too much about the rectilinear because it's not something I am extremely familiar with. I would maybe like to have another conversation with you once I've looked into that a bit more. But you literally can just search online for the rectilinear experiment, and there's pages and pages explaining why he was wrong. But the more important thing is that when we do measurements now, we don't find that, and I still don't think you get the.
There's not a replication of it.
No, I don't think they would replicate that now, because we have other ways of doing things like
light bends. So
no, the nature of light in it is just to go in a straight line because of it acts as a wave and a particle, and a wave would just naturally travel in a straight line if there's no medium. And in a vacuum, there is no medium. Obviously there's space-time because that is the fabric of the universe, but there is no medium, there's no atmosphere, there is no molecules or atoms within that. LIGO is, I think, 10 to the negative 11 torr. That shows the fact that light travels in a straight line when it's in a vacuum.
The negative 11 torr, that shows that the light's straight.
Yeah.
So how does that show that the light's straight?
Because there's no medium in it, and if there's no medium, it shows that light naturally travels in a straight line.
If it's detecting, did you see the page that says "look deeper" and it's like dimming what's on the page is described as a black hole? Did you see that page, by the way, on the LIGO?
Say that again, sorry.
The page on the LIGO website that says "go deeper" and it's apparently a black hole. Showing it around the Milky Way, and it's showing. Did you not see that in the picture? Some
of the things that they can look at, yeah.
Okay, so picture. I wish I would have sent you that picture because that's another good one to pull up. But I would just like to point out in that picture that if that's detecting something like a black hole and it's that big. Okay.
Well, it's not necessarily detecting the black hole. What it's detecting is the warping of space-time usually from the creation of black holes, or if two supermassive objects like two neutron stars or two black holes collide, then that creates a wave within space-time, a literal warping of space-time that spreads out in a wave, and that's what we can detect. And we can, black holes rotate really, really fast, and that can create gravitational waves, and we can detect that. We can't actually detect the black holes with LIGO. We can just detect what it is doing to space-time.
Okay, so, but it's getting a feedback from that, is what I'm saying. It's not that's
Well,
why
no,
that
not
image
a
is there.
feedback. It doesn't send something out to get something back. It's just detecting what is coming to it.
Okay, what's coming to it?
Yeah.
Okay, so my thing is, when anybody would test, most likely that is into cellular cosmology, of it can't tell if it's exactly in the center of the sky. It's pretty, it's roughly center in the picture anyway. It's actually depicting the celestial center of the universe, about 4,000 miles high. So the cellular cosmology model, the center of the universe above sea level is roughly 4,000 miles. That's given the circumference of the Earth, which was, by the calculations of the rectilineator, 25,000 miles in circumference. So if they were all, rectilineator was all off exactly at the right amount of 25,000 miles in circumference to it. So just going back to the black, that picture, it appears as though it's actually recording the center of the universe, and in which case a laser that's recording that, or in some way recording it. I'm not saying it's getting feedback. I'm just saying if it's affecting it, if it's detecting it's being affected in a way, and which is all light is. So all the nature of light is to get back to the source. So it's going to curl back to be straight. They can say it's straight all they want. The laser, it's not confirmed straight because there's no geodetic survey like the rectilineator to confirm it. So the LIGO, from what I can tell, is actually not a great proof for.
Well,
for
actually, the construction of LIGO was it's not one complete chamber. They literally had to construct it in sections, and each section was completely straight. So there is no argument about is LIGO straight or not. That's literally how it was designed. All the different sections put together, each section being exactly straight, and a vacuum inside.
Based around the laser.
Well,
right?
no, even before the laser was put in, the laser was only turned on once they had it constructed and made it a vacuum, and then they spent 20 years trying to calibrate it to make sure it was straight. And it's just a fact of the universe that the nature of light is to travel in a straight line.
So you're going off just to see if this is correct. You're going off of so when they did it in sections, do you know if the laser itself, I know it goes through these acceleratons or whatever they call them, the sections of it where it accelerates the laser at a faster rate, and I saw it was 800 more times powerful than the typical laser. So I know that the laser was more powerful than 800 by 800 times the laser pointer. It's going in sections, so it's the laser passing through mirrors and stuff. I mean, that's the little devices in between the sections. What's to keep that laser from doing what it's going to do? If you're saying the natural course is to bend, but sections they have to they're building the vacuum sections. They're building it around the laser. They're not building. I get it that they level it off the ground. They have the water, but when you're talking about laser, you're talking about a light. Your presumption is it's straight, and that's where we're going to disagree.
I mean, it's really not a presumption.
I guess.
All physics points towards the fact that light travels in a straight line, and that's what they base these a lot of quantum experiments around that fact. And we know that quantum physics is, as we've been told, we probably wouldn't be talking the way we are without quantum physics and quantum uncertainty. And we know that it's just a fact that light travels in a straight line naturally, unless it goes through a medium.
And that's where, I mean, that's not a fact, really. I mean, where is that proven?
in
How is
all
that
of
proven?
science. Like
They're not lining it up next to a structure. So how is it proven that it's moving straight? When you have a rigid level structure that it's not based in light, like the rectilineator.
yeah, but that's what I'm
Then
saying.
how is that
The
comparable
LIGO
to
is
light?
is
How
a
that
rigid
comparable to
structure.
light?
It is a rigid, straight structure.
They didn't design it that way. I looked into it enough to know that they didn't design a lineator. They leveled off the ground. They're going by the water, but that doesn't take into account they're building it around a laser beam.
Yeah, but no.
The
Again, the
experiment
laser
itself
wasn't
isn't.
put in there until they like actually got all the sections connected and made sure that each section was completely straight.
So they already had the concrete, like what you said at the ends, build up by the time they put the laser. How did they know they would need to build up then?
Well, because of the fact that when they put all these extremely straight sections together, they found that at the end there was a meter of space. The Earth had literally fallen away by a meter.
But how did they determine the straightness of the construction? As I know, the rectilineator was painstaking to get the first plank ready.
Yeah, and
painstaking, and it was a professional team.
LIGO. Again, LIGO took 20 years to
LIGO,
calibrate properly.
LIGO was a modern rectilineator, is what you're saying.
It can.
So LIGO,
it can be classed as that if you base it on the fact that we know that it is completely straight. Based on its construction, each individual section was completely straight, and put together, they then formed this completely straight line. And they also, what you find is at the start of LIGO, let me get the image back up. So if you're in the building and you have a level, and I know they do this on tours of the facility, right? If you're in the building and you have a level, then it or plumb, it shows that you're completely level. But once you've moved to the ends, it's not level anymore. It shows a plumb bob actually sways slightly, and a water level, engineer's level shows that it's not level. So that shows that it is, it's straight but not level, because obviously they're very different things.
Well, once we're done with the debate or the conversation, the discussion, if you can send me information on how they constructed it to be perfectly straight,
yeah,
I would love it, because I didn't see anything on the website. I didn't see anything on the website about its construction. It is something where it's legitimate. It's a direct lineator. I'm all about it because that's what I'm for. I'm all about the truth. Whenever I saw the rectilineator, when I saw the Tamarack mines, when I saw
the Tamarack mines were actually a massive misconception. The thing about plumb bob in the Tamarack mines, so you had the Tamarack mines were two going down and then something connected in the middle, and what you found with the plumb bob was that it moved outwards, and that actually matches the predictions of gravitational acceleration. There's an experiment called the Schehallien experiment that they did in Scotland, where they hung a plumb bob off of a mountain and then took readings over the space of a year to see how much that plumb bob actually varied away from the Earth. And what they found was that it moved towards the mountain because the mountain had more mass than the other side. And using just the results of the Schehallien experiment, they were able to calculate the mass of the Earth in a similar way that when Lord Henry Cavendish did his tests on gravitational acceleration, that he was able to determine the weight of the world. And they got results that are pretty close to what we say it is now. And it was similar in the Tamarack mines. The plumb bobs were moving towards the bit with the largest mass, which was the outside of the mine, because inside it was, there was no mass there, but there was mass to the edges. So the Tamarack mines actually showed that plumb bobs moved towards a gravitational influence.
They were two different mine shafts, so next to each other. They weren't a connected mine shaft. So I didn't know if you were aware of this.
So I went through this.
But the whole thing. I guess I'm gonna read something my friend just sent me. Red light is one size wavelength. Blue light is another size wavelength. LIGO could be considered a rectilinear, but it's 1.8 miles. LIGO is 4 kilometers. That's 2.5 miles.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you had anything to say about that.
So,
I was just reading something.
I mean, I don't understand the point of the question. Yeah, it's 4
It's just a
kilometers
statement.
of straight. Yeah.
Red light is one size wavelength. Blue light is another size wavelength. LIGO could be considered a rectilinear, but it's 1 inch per 8 miles. LIGO is 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles.
Yeah, I'm not really sure of the point there. The wavelengths of different colors of light doesn't make a difference to the fact that light naturally travels in a straight line.
Well, she might have been referring back to when you were asking me about the red. What do you call
Redshift.
in the redshift? Yeah. So it might have been that.
Right. So right, let me get right. Here we go. Here's the image that I use for the Timurit mines. Let me just get this up one
But
sec.
if the Tamarack mines, if they would have acted the way that you would think, a conventional way, if you're on a ball and it's the mass is attracting to the center,
Yeah.
then you know, if it would have ended up to where they're converging, you and every other heliocentrist would say, "Oh yeah, it's the mass in the center of the Earth." But because they didn't do what you thought they would do,
Well,
and didn't
you're
do
making
what
you're making an assumption there, but I wouldn't just assume that. I would always
But
look
with the
into what it
rectilinear
is.
4 years before, I mean, that's the thing is that with it's a number of experiments what got my mind going towards this. It wasn't just this one thing or that. And then it's also, if you can, I know I sent you several pictures.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up sonoluminescence because I feel that it's pretty relevant as far as the actual like microcosmic model of what I believe and what some others believe that the Earth and the universe is. So I don't know if you can bring up a picture of the sun. I don't know how to describe the picture actually. It's several, but if you can bring up one of those or a couple of those, I wanted to kind of just show how in microcosm, you know, cellular cosmology has a microcosmic level or model, whereas heliocentrism has never had anything replicate in a demonstration and sign anything close to what we were told it is.
What do you mean?
Especially how everything's so far apart.
What do you mean that heliocentric hasn't replicated anything?
Well, with cellular cosmology, we have sonofusion, we have sonoluminescence, we have levitating magnetic ball experiments. We have a lot of things to show us, look at it, demonstrate on a small level what it is, what it could be. Heliocentrism, I cannot find one experiment to show a working heliocentric model on small scale. So what I'm saying is
the model literally says that you can't do that. I mean, if you try to replicate a ball with a gas atmosphere and water on it, then it's just going to go towards the Earth. The only way we could replicate it is if you give me a sphere that's 25,000 miles in circumference, and then I could show you the gravity also makes things stick to that. But the model literally says that that's how it should be. But there is many things that back up the model, and the fact that we have experienced and demonstrated that there appears to be an attractive force between mass. And when you look at gravitational vectors, they'll point towards the center of a sphere. And then when you look at simple things like PNS waves from earthquakes and the shadow zones created by that, and the fact that we can pinpoint where on the Earth the earthquakes are coming from, it again just backs up the Earth is a sphere. There literally is no other shape that could cause the PNS waves and the shadow zones from earthquakes and seismic activities. The only shape that makes sense on is a sphere. But now, which picture was it you wanted me to bring up? Is it one of the sun halo ones?
I wanted to show the relation. I wanted to show the relation between the model of cellular cosmology and sonoluminescence. So there's a picture that show like a separation between the cell. Yeah, that one. Basically, if we're inside something, like just consider, I know your mind's made up on heliocentrism, it's objective truth to you. If we're in something and we're on the inner edge instead of on the outside of a ball, and we have the sky in the middle projecting the light, and we have something spinning up there like a vortex, So the wheel in the sky keeps on turning, song said. Then we have a model, we have a replication of that as far as in microcosm in sonoluminescence. So this is what I'm trying to show. So if we're inside something, then there's the sphere in the middle, there's the little glint of light on the right. You can't see it, it's not coming up on mine, but I know what it looks like. Here we go. And when you put it all together, you have a celestial sphere, and you have a sun, and you have an atmosphere, and you have an entire thing in one little demonstration. So can you bring up the other picture? I guess, can you bring up the picture of the angular cosmology model where you have the curving of the light, just to kind of compare the two, and show you what I'm saying.
Do you mean
this one where it's like a black? Well, there's that. There's another one that shows the whole thing. That one's pretty good too, but I don't like glass sky. That one's pretty good too. That I actually think is more accurate. What it says, it's a mix between sonoluminescence and fusion. So with this one, you have the whole middle, you have the celestial sphere, and you have, of course, not supposed to be a depiction of cellular cosmology. I don't think it's just supposed to be something showing sort of maybe what it's in the Earth or constructed like actually or something. But basically, I do believe we're inside something like this, and the light is bending, so it's impossible really being so small for us to understand just how skewed our perception is on that.
Okay, but can you
bring up the one?
Sorry,
one more picture. Sorry,
carry on.
That's not the one. The one picture where it's like where it's like a So this is what I'm talking about. You have the plasma sun, you have the sun rays, and you have that curvature of the sunlight. So from active, we're low.
What's the mechanism that's causing the light to bend, though?
Well, whenever you're going through, when light's going through, it might start in the middle. It's going through layers of atmosphere, bending like a concave bend. So every layer goes.
We can calculate things like that. If you know the lapse rate, which is the change in density over a certain area, then you can actually calculate the things like the coefficient of refraction and stuff. Oh, sorry, one sec. The chat's saying that you keep cutting out again, audio-wise. Could you maybe turn off?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Could you maybe turn off your video feed? Maybe that would keep the audio coming through a bit better. Yeah, I think you can just turn off the camera on the screen.
I'll try. I don't know.
So apparently your audio keeps clipping.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, turned off the video. So.
All right, we'll see how that goes.
Can you? Okay.
All right. So what was I saying? I lost my train of thought now.
How you can read it.
You can actually calculate things like the coefficient of refraction based on what the change in density is over a certain area. It's called the lapse rate. And when you know the coefficient of refraction, you can actually calculate exactly how far light you should be able to see based on light bending, based on that coefficient of refraction. Like we can do these calculations, and it always matches the calculations that we have, and it's not based on any presumptions. We know that a change in medium causes light to bend, and we know that when it goes to a more dense medium, it's going to bend down. And again, we can calculate exactly based on a lapse rate how far we should be able to see.
I guess what I'm saying is I think. And I know you probably disagree and probably going to say that it's just disproven, but I think that light, irregardless of the atmospheric mediums of pressure, air pressure, and all this, that it's going to project in a certain way from the center, and it's going to go back to its source.
So you're saying that like the nature of light is to just bend?
Yes. The nature of light. The reason why I think it's this way is because if you're looking at this picture here, if it's still up, which I'm guessing it is, on your end, that as it's coming down, it's every atmosphere, every part of the atmosphere that it hits, every layer that it's different. It's taking on it's hitting like a TV projection screen. So everyone is getting a little bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger into a funnel. So the funnel broadens, and it gets broader and broader. and then the actual light itself, I believe, cycles back up and around, and that's back to its.
I don't understand. I mean, all science demonstrates that the nature of light is to travel in a straight line. We wouldn't be able to, have a lot of modern technology if we didn't work on one of that, the fundamental basics of something like that. And I've never seen any. Yeah, I've never seen any evidence that the nature of light is to do anything other than travel in a straight line unless it goes through a medium. I've just literally never seen any evidence that that's the case.
Well, the medium is what I'm saying. An atmospheric. There is an ethereal medium, something that it's like as if
we know the ether doesn't
like the
exist,
vacuum.
though.
But the ethereal medium is like a pristine environment. It's like you take out everything, the impurities, and you make it into a vacuum. Then there's still that I like to travel through.
Well, that's the point, that there is no ethereal medium. When you remove all the molecules, it's just a vacuum, and a vacuum is the absence of stuff. That there is no ether as a medium for something to travel through. The ether has been disproven many, many times.
How so?
Well, Mux and Morley experiment, for instance.
Fiber don't travel in straight lines.
Sorry?
Fiber optics travel in straight lines. You say all light travels in straight lines. Fiber optics doesn't.
Yeah, but you can bend fiber optic cables for the light to travel through it. The light's, within a fiber optic cable, the light's literally bouncing around inside it and will follow whatever path you have. Then if you want to look at something like the Sagnac effect inside of interferometric fiber optic gyroscopes, that is based on the fact that light travels in a straight line. And what you find is when you have a fiber optic gyroscope on something that's rotating, then it changes the speed of the path. The distance of the path that light has to travel. But if a fiber optic gyroscope isn't moving, then you don't get an interference pattern because the light's traveling in straight lines and merges back with itself and doesn't present any kind of interference. I think, an interferometric fiber optic gyroscope is a pretty good refutation of the assumption that light naturally bends, because they literally function on the premise that light travels in a straight line, and all modern planes have 3 on them and wouldn't work the way that they do if light was naturally inclined to bend. But there's so many observations and stuff that kind of disprove a lot of what you're saying.
Are there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the Earth was concave, then we should be able to receive radio signals from pretty much anywhere on the Earth. Microwave signals, which really aren't affected by atmospheric conditions, we know microwave definitely travels in a straight line, and we would be able to receive microwave transitions from the other side of the planet, but we can't because there's a physical bulge in the way. Obviously, it's all part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and when you have microwaves, which is an extremely short wavelength, it would show us that light would either, the nature of light would be to bend or to curve. But microwaves travel in a straight line, and being such a short wavelength, it demonstrates that the nature of electromagnetism is for it to go in a straight line. And that's kind of a big thing.
The light going in a straight line thing is just, it's weird to me. People would 100% believe it, because we're seeing objects like you were saying, even brought up. Sometimes dozens of feet, and that's calling it refraction, but that's still, and it's traveling, and of course it's not.
But that's the point. Of course, when there's a medium, it causes light to bend.
But it's all a medium.
A vacuum. A vacuum is literally the absence of a medium.
It's not nothing. The vacuum just gets rid of the impurities. There's no.
No, it gets rid of everything. There's nothing inside a vacuum. That's the point of a vacuum.
So in space, where you say space is a vacuum, but they're saying they're now discovering in space. They're discovering particles in space.
Space isn't a perfect vacuum. There's stuff in space, but it is pretty much a vacuum. About 10 to the negative 17 torr. I don't think you can ever have a 100% perfect vacuum, but if you look at, say, 10 to the negative 11 torr, that's 1/1 trillionth of an atmosphere. So there's going to be literally nothing inside there. There is no molecules, there is no particles, there's no matter, there's nothing. A vacuum is the absence of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the thing is with this, it's something of a bit of a faith, I guess, when it comes to the feeling that that light itself has a natural curve back to the center. It's of a whenever you look at when you actually look at the model itself and how the light's bending, and I know you said that the optical illusion of the sun rays coming down and kind of fraying out and all this, it's still like we're taking into account our senses, and if I don't feel any spin, that's another thing. Aries failure, I know right before we got on this discussion, Skeptic was talking about how Aries failure is wrong. Yeah. So a lot of these tests that you're saying are disproven are never.
Aries failure just assumed there was neither. That was the point of why it was wrong. It was assumed that light needed a medium to travel through, but it doesn't.
So the LIGO, I'm definitely look more in, because if it is an updated rectilineator, which I'm skeptical, what I've read from it didn't construct it like a geodetic survey, like where they're trying to make it at that level. I really want to look into it, because it's hard for me to just discount an experiment I've looked extensively and then fall right into believing an experiment that I haven't actually been to. So for me, definitely look into light. I'm all about getting to the bottom of things. Oh, I wanted to mention light reflection dynamics. So it's a simple thing, but something that convinced a friend of mine that is likely that in Concave is, she was in the Navy, she was up in planes, and she saw how the sun reflected off the water. She's always going over big bodies of water, and she said that even at high noon, that round glint off the water. She never saw the sun reflecting off the water in the way it reflects off of what we're told is a convex in a round glint. She always saw it as blotchy, elongated, which indicates concavity. So that was a big thing for her, and she's really smarter than me on science. Actually, she's been a big like a mentor for me. And I wanted to know what you thought about light reflection in that way. What's your explanation for that?
I mean, I don't really understand how it demonstrates that the Earth is concave. Light reflects off of things, and again, that's part of how the function of intermetric fiber optic gyroscope works, is that light has to reflect off of that silver mirror and split the beam into two paths. I don't see how the nature of light reflecting shows that it's concave.
Well, if it reflects distinctively off of convex, different than concave. Have you ever seen how light reflects off a billiard ball compared to?
Oh, yeah. You mean like how you see
yes.
like that? Well, the Earth's so big that it's going to look like a straight line coming towards you. Of course it is. You can't really see that it's a curve. But, I mean, what you're seeing on that is actually the light reflecting off of each one of those tiny waves. It's not necessarily reflecting in a straight line. It's just each one of those tiny waves is reflecting light in a different direction based on the orientation of the wave towards the light.
Can you show the other two pictures where I showed the billiard ball and then or the cue ball, and then I showed the light reflecting off the inside of a concave bowl? They're pretty easier ones to find. So that's a traditional light reflecting off of a convex. And then light reflecting off there's a bowl, it's a red bowl. So I wanted to show that as well. Because it's
I don't
kind of
think
gets
I
to
have
my
that
point.
one on there.
Shit.
I'm pretty sure I put every one you sent me, but I don't see the one with a Red Bull. But yeah,
Well,
I mean
it's like a
that
bronze
billiard
with a
ball
metal.
is tiny. The Earth is so massive that
That's
you
what
know,
I'm saying is my
but
friend was up pretty high in airplanes, and that's why she was able to see from up high and at high noon and all
I
different
mean,
kinds of times a day.
even in an airplane, you're barely away from the surface based on the size of the Earth.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that light, the fact that light reflects off things differently, if it's convex or concave, it should be taken into account, I think. Little observation.
Yeah,
Um,
I understand what you're saying,
but
but the fact that the Earth is so massive, and your point of view is such a low field of view compared to, because you're so small compared to the Earth, that it's going to appear straight.
and I wanted to bring up, okay, so good point on that. That's one of the, arguably weaker points. The UCLA Spin Lab back about 8 years ago did a fluid dynamics test for spinning platform versus a stationary platform. And I wanted to see if you would research this because it's a big one for proving that the Earth's stationary. Because it shows that on a spinning table, there's ribbons of atmosphere. Then on a stationary table with the spinning fluid dispenser, it reacts the same similar way that we have hurricanes and weather patterns. So the
Um,
Spin Lab actually through fluid dynamics, pretty recently actually, because it was only 8 years ago, really showed to me that if it's spinning, it would look like what the representation of the planets were showed, where it has ribbons of atmosphere and it's like
See,
it looks
that's
like
not
it's
the
spinning.
case. The thing
So,
is
so with
with the
Earth,
atmosphere is that it's been spinning with the Earth for billions of years, right? And through friction, basically, it's picked up, it's dragged the atmosphere with it. And the Earth is rotating pretty damn slowly, 15 degrees per hour, once a day. And the atmosphere has been being dragged around at that same speed for billions of years. So the atmosphere rotates with the Earth because of gravity and friction. And storm systems being created within actually demonstrate that the Earth is rotating because you have things like the Coriolis force. And the Coriolis force is partly responsible for things like hurricanes will not cross the equator because if a hurricane crossed the equator, it literally rips apart the forces that are creating that because you go from one rotational vector to another when you go into the southern hemisphere. And
yeah,
there's
you
no
also
reason
have
why on a concave Earth that
yeah,
hurricanes
there
wouldn't
is.
be able to cross an equator.
That a spinning sky has huge implications, and it's one that's so close. If you have a spinning sky, that's going to have its own phenomenon, and you say that that wouldn't work in a set of cosmology. That's kind of crazy, in my opinion. I'm not saying you're crazy. I'm saying that just to dismiss something because it couldn't work on it.
Well, I'm not. I'm not
The
just
sky,
dismissing it.
a
I'm.
spinning
My point
sky.
is that the nature of a spinning globe with an atmosphere on it actually perfectly matches what we see with weather patterns and hurricanes and stuff.
Well,
It's
not according to fluid dynamics.
it really
Not
does.
according to dynamics.
If you are on
No, have
something
you
that
looked
has,
into it?
yeah, I mean, I've got a degree in physics. I've studied a lot of fluid
No,
dynamics,
I
and
have
the
you looked
fact that
into
an atmosphere is rotating with the Earth is what makes a lot of storm systems and that happen. And I don't see how on a concave Earth that you would have a reason for hurricanes to stop when they go to the equator. There's no explanation for that fact. And I mean, the Coriolis force on its own is an excellent demonstration that we are in fact spinning.
a spinning sky wouldn't have you wouldn't think that would have any effect on anything down here in that way. You wouldn't think that massive sky spinning would have
There's
any
no
effect on the weather or anything.
no that well. I mean, if the sky was spinning,
You wouldn't
sure,
think
it would
something
have
like
an
that
effect
would.
on the atmosphere, but there's no reason why a spinning sky would stop a hurricane at the equator in such a way like that. That happens because of the counter-rotating hemispheres of an Earth, of a rotating globe. And
There's also a counter rotation because of the it's still spherical of a celestial spinning sky. There's still counter rotation. You know, it's not like that. It stops being a spherical nature to the system just because it's inverted. It doesn't make everything invalid just because something's inverted.
What about interferometric fiber optic gyroscopes though? Why do they detect a 15 degree per hour drift? I mean, there's no way they can detect
the Earth is what you're saying. They detect the Earth spin. Saying,
well, it doesn't have to be the Earth spinning, but the nature of a fiber optic gyroscope is that it will detect a change in acceleration. It will detect motion of what it is on. And let me show you this. So this is a fiber. Can you see this?
Sure. Yeah, I can.
So that is a fiber optic gyroscope that is from a drone. Okay. It works based on the Sagnac effect. So if it's rotating, it shows you that. Now, what Wolfie does...
You can see that it is...
Let me mute him. So he's placed it polar aligned similar to his position on the Earth. And what he does is he moves it backwards and forwards. Okay? So this is normally in a drone. So the computer thinks it's in a drone. And as he rotates the globe backwards and forwards, it shows that the drone matches those movements, showing that the fiber optic gyroscope is literally picking up that change in acceleration. There's a better shot in a minute of actually the screen and the thing. So as he's moving that drone left and right, the globe backwards and forwards, the movements are reflected in the program that thinks it's in a drone. And what you see is that it's rotating on the 3 axes, which is what we actually pick up with a fiber optic gyroscope. I'm sure everyone knows about Bob's famous gyroscope experiment, picking up 15 degrees. And it's not just a 15 degree rotation in one direction. It's a 15 degree rotation on 3 axes, which can only happen if it's on the outside of a rotating sphere. But it doesn't just pick up that 15 degrees. What a fiber optic gyroscope also picks up is a 1 degree drift a day on a vertical plane. And that is the movement of the Earth around the Sun. So why would a fiber optic gyroscope pick up a 15 degree drift in 3 axes and a 1 degree drift on a 2D plane if the Earth wasn't
the same reason,
moving?
I think the same reason why your LIGO picks up things of it is the gravitational waves, is because it's being pushed and pulled in this way and that way by a huge sky that's turning, and different things in the sky that have their own power. I mean, the sun is not, just because the sun's small, it doesn't mean it doesn't have its immense power. It does just because something is not a vast abyss doesn't mean that it doesn't have power.
What's it actually picking up though? Because the nature of a gyroscope of this kind is that it can't pick up anything else. I mean, light doesn't have a charge, so it's not going to be affected by any kind of electromagnetism. There's nothing outside of the gyroscope that that it could register. It can't see the sky. It doesn't know the sky is moving. All it can do is detect physical motion of what it's on. I mean, how much about the Sagnac effect do you understand?
I understand that it's a split laser on tables that spin, and they did a recording on where they didn't spin, and then did a recording on the other, or they did the one the light ended up at different points.
So as you can see in this, the laser comes out the blue box. That diagonal line is a silver-coated mirror that splits the beam into 2 paths. And if the gyroscope was on something that's stationary, you would have light recombine, and there would be no interference pattern. But if the gyroscope is physically moving, what that does is literally shortens the path that the light has to travel. And then when the light recombines, you measure an interference pattern. And what every single interferometric fiber optic gyroscope in the world registers is a movement in 3 axes. This is just a demonstration on 2 axes, obviously, but every single interferometric fiber optic gyroscope on the planet registers a drift of 15 degrees in 3 axes, and if they're accurate enough, that 1 degree drift a day around the sun that the Earth is traveling. I don't see any explanation for it picking up those 2 separate measurements.
Well,
even
think
even
that
if we go with the assumption that the 15 degree per hour that is picking up is the movement of the sky, even if we assume that is true, it doesn't explain the 1 degree drift a day that it registers of the orbital plane of the Earth. That can't be explained by rotating sky.
The sky is not only rotating on the cellular cosmology, it's tilting slightly, and that's where you get your different seasons. You don't have a perfect stationary as far as a 2-axis sky. You have one that's somewhat tilting, and that's where you get the tilt and you get the variance of the sun in a different motion. So there's are different things of the sky's doing. It's not just turning. It's tilting as well. So I mean that's where I guess I would say that's probably the way to, or that way.
But
I'm just trying to
the nature of a fiber optic gyroscope. What physically, if it's the sky that's rotating, what physically is it that gyroscope is measuring? What mechanics is causing it to register that 15 degree per drift? What is it that's doing it? Is it magnetism? Is it space-time distorting? What is it?
I would probably say electromagnetism. I mean, if I had to guess, if
light has no charge, though.
It would be electromagnetism.
Light has a zero. Light has a zero charge. It's not positive. It's not negative. Light is zero charge, and that means it wouldn't be affected by a magnetic field of any kind.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, I want to look into what you're saying. That's the thing.
Well, for me, this is one of the biggest evidence of the not just against flat Earth, but against a stationary concave Earth. It's kind of undeniable, especially when you look at this demonstration physically shows you what a gyroscope is picking up. It shows you that as the gyroscope changes in acceleration, it picks that motion up in the 3 axes, and this is it physically happening right in real time. Obviously, it's not that fast because the Earth rotates once per day. But that is showing you there that that's what a gyroscope registers, a physical movement, a physical change in acceleration. It's not picking up, at this point, when that gyroscope's going backwards and forwards, there's nothing else interfering with it. There's no light or sky above him that's going backwards and forwards like that. That gyroscope is picking up the drift of that globe that it's on. So that demonstrates that that's what gyroscopes do. Fiber optic gyroscopes. And it's not just fiber optic gyroscopes. If you have a mechanical gyroscope that is accurate enough,
is it not affected by the wind?
No, it wouldn't be affected by anything. I mean, if the wind picked up a gyroscope and chucked it down the road, yeah, sure, it'd measure that. But if a gyroscope's bolted to something like a plane, when they turn on the plane on the runway, the plane's just sitting there. But the second they turn on the stuff, the artificial horizons and everything, it bases its measurements on that, on its position on the Earth because of the drift and everything. So
let me ask you about the gyroscope, because this is interesting. I wanted to ask, because with the assumption that it's spinning, then the environment's not, it can't keep up quite with the spin. So that's where you get you get the difference of, I'm just entertaining the idea of this. Sorry, real quick.
Say that again.
Just the idea of what you say, that, I'm considering it without accepting, and I'm just, say you have a gyroscope and the Earth's turning and the atmosphere is also, but the atmosphere is not keeping up with the spin of the Earth, correct? It's going to be slower.
It's pretty much picking up with this, with the spin of the Earth. Like I said, the atmosphere has been spinning with the globe for billions of years, and it's been dragging it along. Sure, if you have a column of air going straight up, say you hold out your hand and you just imagine a column of air all the way up to the top of the edge of space, then that's going to, the top will be maybe slightly behind, but for all intents and purposes, the atmosphere also rotates at 15 degrees per hour.
So I guess what I'm getting with the gyroscope is that you said it's not affected by the environment. It's not affected by it's not affected
there's
by
no way it can be. It's a self-contained unit. The fiber optic gyroscopes or ring laser gyroscopes, they are inside of something. There's no way that it can see what's outside.
How does it know that it's keeping up when it's turning if it's not if there's no relation to the atmosphere around it, affected by the atmosphere? How does it know?
it doesn't.
How can it read it? I mean,
well, because it detects physical motion of what it's on. So if we look at
so if it's
let me just get up this again, and we're talking about. Okay, come on.
so you're saying
Right,
what
so
this proves is that the gyroscope proves the Earth's spinning, is what you're saying.
a gyroscope is extremely strong evidence for a rotating globe. Yeah, the fact that it is on 3 axes and 1 axis, or the 2D plane around the sun. It's that silver box on Bob's desk there. That is the $20,000 infamous fiber optic gyroscope that they have, right? And it's a self-contained unit. The ring laser stuff is inside that unit. It cannot see anything outside. No wind or anything is going to affect it. All it knows is that, well, it doesn't know anything, but it's on his desk. His desk is connected to his floor. His floor is connected to the Earth, and the Earth's rotating. So that's what it's picking up. There is no variance between his desk and the Earth. They're all rotating as one. And that's what it picks up. And what Bob does in this demonstration on this video is he zeroes the gyroscope. And then the second that he turns it back on, it's straight away picking up that drift. The second that it turns on, it's registering that drift in 3 axes. Bob explains it away as a toroidal field rotating down towards it, but that doesn't make sense because the nature of light is it has 0 charge, so it wouldn't be affected by any kind of electromagnetic field. I just want to address someone in the chat quickly. Justeline, who are you?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, Jaceline,
I was going to say something.
Light doesn't bend. No, I didn't say that. I said the nature of light is to go in a straight line unless it is going through a medium of different densities. Then it will bend. So please don't try and strawman me because I didn't say that. Sorry, carry on.
Regarding the gyroscope, I look into this because if indeed there is evidence from the scope that that there's a spin, then I'll have to look into it myself. I can't. Mm-hmm. I'm not just going to believe. I'm not going to go with something because somebody said that I have to. I have to rethink.
Yeah,
so,
obviously. But the thing about gyroscopes is it's not just the optical light-based ones that do this. If you have a gyroscope that is accurate enough, a mechanical gyroscope that's accurate enough and lubed up enough, a mechanical gyroscope will also detect that 15-degree drift. And there's a video of that on Wolfie's channel. I don't have it available right now, but there is evidence that the Earth is rotating based on both fiber optic gyroscopes and mechanical gyroscopes. In fact, gyro compasses use the Earth's rotation to find true north. They literally wouldn't work if the Earth wasn't rotating. That's how they function.
Well, this is, I guess I need to learn more about this stuff, but my explanation, if I had to, for this is frequency. I mean, if the universe is emitting a frequency like with Sailor cosmology or the sonolumination, the frequency itself is going to have an effect on everything. And it's the vortex is going to have effect on gyroscopes. It's going to have effect on these things, and it's a perfect turning. So it's not going to be a deviation. It's not going to.
But what's the vortex made of, though? That's the thing. If you say the vortex is some kind of electromagnetism, then that doesn't fly because, as I said, light has no charge, and electromagnetism wouldn't affect it.
It's a frequency. It's an emanation.
It's a frequency of what?
Well, essentially sound frequency, but we don't, there's no way of knowing exactly what it's deeper into the universe. So I'm guessing there's no way that we know exactly how or what the unexplainables, I guess. But to think of eternity, and we're thinking of the universe and eternity and the Big Bang, and all these things. With the sonoluminescence, you have the frequency in the star in the jar, and then it creates. It's the bubble. It generates the light. If we have life as or this place is eternal, which I'm not saying 100% it is, but the emanation of a frequency to explain the quote Big Bang, to explain how light's actually generated and the environment. Sonoluminescence in large scale is much more close to what this all could be compared to anything heliocentrism has tried to explain. There's nothing in heliocentrism where you actually have a great explanation of the reason why or even how.
I disagree.
I know you're asking how this
explains.
but it's not the same.
I don't think there's anything that heliocentrism doesn't explain. That's why we have the model. A model in
Big
science.
Bang, that's an explanation.
Well, the Big Bang can be explained through things like the cosmic microwave background radiation. We know the Big Bang happened because of something like the current expansion of the universe and the creation of the cosmic microwave background radiation. So, at the beginning of the universe, before the Big Bang isn't the right term. Okay, Big Bang was actually a term that was dreamed up by, I think, some religious people, but it's not really a correct explanation of what happened. It was just a really quick expansion, right? At the beginning of the universe, when you can trace, you work backwards and see that mathematically it predicts that at one point, all of the universe, all the energy in the universe was in one infinitesimally small singularity, but then it expanded. All right, don't know why. I don't think anyone really knows why. Who knows if there's a god that caused it to expand? But we know at some point there was an expansion based on the fact that it's still expanding, right? Now, for the first 370,000 years, the universe was so hot and condensed that the protons and electrons that were formed from the quarks and gluons literally were too energetic and too excited to be able to combine. But then the universe got big enough and cooled enough that protons and electrons combined. Then that's what we call the recombination event. And then as an electron moves from its high energy state to its low energy state, when it combined with the proton to form a hydrogen atom, that will cause a photon to an electron to emit photons. And that's what we see as the remnants of the Big Bang, or at least 370,000 years after the Big Bang, in the cosmic microwave background radiation. There is no other explanation for why we see from all directions in the universe that remnant of a recombination event.
Other than the fact that it's a sound-produced universe and we're inside something that's designed for life and not in a big, huge expanse where everything is millions of light years away that has no
sound really has nothing to do with the way that electrons and protons would combine to form a hydrogen atom. That's just
frequency has everything to do with everything, just like Tesla said. Vibration and energy and frequency. The universe, if you want to know the secrets,
Well, but we can break the universe down to its constituent parts. We know that everything is made of atoms. We know atoms are made of subatomic particles. We know those subatomic particles are made of quarks and gluons. We know the quarks and gluons are energy strings that are working on different vibrations, but we know what those make. And when the literal cosmic microwave background radiation happened because the electrons and the protons merged together to form hydrogen molecules and hydrogen atoms. And that's very little to do with frequency, more to do with electrical potential. The electrons wanted something to bind to so that they could be in their lowest energy state. Everything wants to go towards a low energy state. So, it's natural once the universe was cool enough and big enough, below 3,000 kelvins, I think, conditions were right for the protons and the electrons to combine. And that gave us the cosmic microwave background radiation, which is, it shows us what the universe is. Let me get a picture up of the CMB, because that's kind of my point here. Right, here we go.
So you're saying that this couldn't have happened in a smaller scale, that this has to be a huge expanse.
Well, because we know the way that galaxies and stuff are moving away from each other. And right, so this is.
But how do you know? How do you know all this? Like, seriously, are you?
Well, spectroscopy of light is.
How do you know all this? How do you know?
I've got a bachelor's of physics. I've spent a lot of time studying the physics of the universe, and the nature of the way things work is explained by light redshifts as it's moving away from you, and we can see that galaxies are moving away from each other. And if things are expanding, then there was a point when they weren't expanding. And this is a literal imprint of the recombination event near the beginning of the universe, at the point where the universe first became opaque. The first time the universe was translucent, Before this point, the universe was opaque because there was so many free electrons moving around that light couldn't get from one point to another before being scattered off of a free electron, right? It was only after this point that the universe cooled to a certain point that the recombination was allowed to happen, that the universe was transparent because there wasn't all those high energetic free electrons around to scatter light. So, and this is an imprint of that we see in the sky. And when we've got satellites up there that are up there purely to look at this CMB, and they don't see this when looking at the Earth, they see this when looking out into space, at every point in space.
Yeah, they see the celestial star globe, which is, not very far. I mean, they're seeing things happen right when they happen. We're not seeing something that's billions of light years away. We're seeing everything as it
shows. This shows that these things are that far away because we can use it. Because redshift is probably one of the strongest evidence that the universe is still expanding. And when you mathematically model the expansion and go backwards, then you find there was a point where the expansion came from. And the predictions around the universe, right? The predictions around the Big Bang predicted the CMB before we actually detected it. And then we looked for the CMB and we found it.
The image is produced by detecting frequency.
I mean,
that image is produced
kind
by
of how
detecting
satellites
frequency.
work.
Yeah, exactly.
It's detecting microwaves, so it's detecting extremely short wavelengths of electromagnetism. I mean, I'm not going to deny that things have frequency. Of course, everything has a frequency. Everything is vibrating. It's kind of part of the universe, but it doesn't explain why we can see literal remnants of something that it was predicted by our model. Like I said, the recombination event and photon decoupling was predicted based on mathematical modeling, and we were right. That's exactly what we found.
Which microwaves are frequency?
Microwaves are an extremely short wavelength of electromagnetism. I mean, if you want to, the frequency of the wavelength is, the oscillation. But
I guess I wanted to ask you also just recently. So you don't think there's nothing strange about the sunlight reflecting off big bodies of water the way it does?
No, because the Earth is so massive. That's exactly what we should
see. So you're not
just
pulling my chain. You're not just pulling my chain and just saying that. You actually believe that there's no light reflection dynamics. It has nothing to do, that it doesn't matter how the light's reflecting off the water.
No, when we look at light coming from the sun or the moon reflecting off of water, the actual amount of the sphere we are seeing is practically flat because it's so big compared to us. If there was a much larger body of water and we were big enough to see around the curve, then we would see the light curving on the water, but we're not big enough to see a physical curve when you look in front of you. All you can see is the effects of curvature. And if we're going to talk about effects of curvature, we have to
the
bring
reflection
up
could be a square. So the reflection could be a square. And you wouldn't think that would be strange.
No, the reflection wouldn't be a square. I don't understand.
Yeah, but exactly. You're saying that the reflection doesn't matter, so it could be a square. It could be any shape.
What I'm saying is when we see light reflecting, that's what and it looks straight, that's what we expect to see based on the size of the Earth. But
well, that one picture isn't a good demonstration of what I meant by that. The one picture that I showed isn't thousands of flight hours from my friend who's a very person, high security level in the Navy. Over and over, the sun reflecting off the water in the way it reflects off the concavity, not a convex. So I know you have all this, all nations.
You know that I'm ex-Navy,
when we get basics, I'm ex-Navy as well. So when we get down to the basics,
well,
though, and
just before we carry on, then you have my respect. Just so you know that anyone that is willing to, put their life on the line for service to their country deserves respect. So thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. Sorry, I guess I'm kind of going off on a thing here, but it's just hard for me to look past the basics. So when I see something like light reflection dynamics not reflecting the way that I'm told that, or from a convex surface, when I'm seeing the only geodetic level test, I'm sorry, but the only one that was done to determine the shape of the Earth be concave, the only plumb bob line test with the tamarack showing divergence, or
but that wasn't the only plumb line.
Convergence. Sorry.
Have you ever heard of the Schehelian experiment, like I explained?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So have you ever heard? You said that there's only ever been one plumb bob experiment, but that's not true, because there is the Schehelian experiment, which was a pretty big plumb bob experiment that was done, I think, in the 1800s and then repeated in 1994 by a team of BBC researchers on a mountain in Scotland, and that used the plumb bob to show that there's a gravitational attraction.
This I haven't actually heard of, but I would say if it's hanging off the side of a cliff, is that what it is? Like it's in the atmosphere where it's like a wind?
But they took readings over a year. So they did the experiment over a whole year. So you could take the average of all the weather conditions, and that can give you an idea of the what the plumb bob is actually doing. So that when it's windy, when it's raining, when it's still, when you take the averages of it all, they were actually able to, based on the gravitational attraction they calculated, to figure out the mass of the Earth and the mass of the mountain that they were next to, and that's an extremely good plumb bob experiment. But I mean, there's so many things
I'll definitely have to check it out. I appreciate it.
Can't explain. I mean, we all know refraction's a thing, right? When you're close to water, refraction is an issue, and I don't think that observations over water are exclusive evidence either way. What you need to do is do observations away from refraction, and that's when you get things like this. And this shows not just a little bit, but a large amount of curvature that matches the globe predictions, right? So this is taken down the road from me on a mountain, a hillside that's 210 meters up. And the video that's taken from, it's got a plaque showing how high above sea level it is, and he's 210 meters above sea level. And the top of the Forth Road Bridge pillars are also 210 meters above sea level. So you've got a reference to what eye level is, okay? The camera and the top of those pillars are both 210 meters above sea level. Those hills in the background that I think are about 15, maybe 20-ish kilometers away in Edinburgh, they are 500 meters above sea level. So that matches the calculations for globe curvature perfectly.
Well, the light's curving up on a solar cosmology faster than the incline. So unless you have a zoom camera with that, you're not going to see.
I mean, zoom in doesn't change
the
amount of that you can see.
Zoom is amazing if you ever actually see the evidences for Concave Earth and the Fata Morgana videos, because it actually brings an image completely back into view that you weren't able to see before, and it's usually raised off.
I can disprove
that with one video. It's usually raised off the horizon line significantly, dozens of feet in some cases, so that you're not only seeing the image you're not only seeing it, you're seeing it raised significantly off the horizon from 20 plus miles away.
Yeah. Okay.
This should be buried by, in some cases, by 100 feet of curvature.
Give me 1 sec. I can
so I mean, you're able to see
that
things.
with
We're able to
one
see the incline.
video. So this is from a guy called Daz the Cameraman, right? using a
Sure.
P1000, yeah, P1000 with 125 times optical zoom, right? And there is some boats on the horizon. I'm just going to increase the playback speed so we can see it better. He zooms in on these 3 boats that you can see, and as he zooms in, he takes a screenshot. Right, get to it, Dazza. Here we go. So as he starts to zoom in, come on. Right, okay, here we go. So he takes a screenshot of this point, and then keeps zooming in to the maximum zoom of the P1000. And what he does is compare the screenshot from when it was zoomed out to when it zoomed in. And what it shows is that the zooming in didn't do anything to bring any more of that into view. I mean, this video is extremely conclusive evidence that zooming in will not bring anything back.
Because you have to see other videos, because this one it's different than the ones I've seen.
See,
there's ones I've seen where
what I can guarantee is the ones that you see are with boats of much smaller angular size. And when you have a smaller angular size, you need to take into account things like the Rayleigh criteria. If the angular size is small enough that a camera or your eye can't resolve it, then as you zoom in, it's going to appear to bring it into view, because then the angular size is large enough that the aperture of the camera can then detect that light. But these tankers are large enough that the Rayleigh criteria wasn't really an issue. And zooming in didn't do anything to increase the amount that was seen.
Regardless, for one, you don't. This video is not so far showing the distance at which he can show. Like usually in the ones I've seen, they show actually the geographic distance from a map, and they show the line in which they're looking at and see how far everything is away. So you can kind of confirm
all
that
the
it's 10
information
plus
is
20,
actually
30 miles
on
away.
the description of the video, and I think he even had mapping, like ship maps, to show where the ships were at the time to confirm it.
Well, regardless, if something is, and I've calculated myself on a flat Earth, or on a ball Earth calculator, a curve calculator. If something's 20 miles away and you're only 5 to 10 feet off the sea level, and you're able to see it, that's some crazy refraction you have there, because 20 miles on a curve calculator is well under the horizon. So,
so
the fact that you're able to not only see it, but see it raised. You're not only seeing it, but seeing it raised off the horizon. You're seeing water lines raised. You're seeing land lines raised. It's that video didn't do the justice what I've seen with Fata Morgana, or so-called Fata Morgana.
But
as much as that video
that
does,
day was
does
taken.
help see
The reason he did that on that day, because there was minimal refractive conditions, right? But let me just get this up for you for 1 second, because you're saying about, oh, that must be some crazy refraction, right? But I've been dealing with a flat Earth dumbass called Howard George Stirrup, who one of his largest evidence for the Earth is that he can see lights over water at 20 miles away. So I had Tommy Gronville actually model it out for me on a software called SketchUp, I think. And, well, at 10 miles, I think it was 0.16 degrees that the light would have to bend. And, yeah, here's the other one. I can give everyone the link to the actual model if they like, so that they can actually have a look around the model in real time rather than just pictures. But at 20 miles, the light would only have to bend. Let me get that up so you can see. Oh, that's not the right one. Why is that not?
Still bringing it dozens above what is conventional thinking would have it, that you would be able to see.
Well, yeah, but what you need to think is it's not the amount of the drop that you need to take into account. It's the degrees that light would have to bend. And at 20 miles, the light would only have to bend. No, sorry, this is even at 30 miles. The light would only have to bend at 0.162 degrees. And standard refraction is 0.5 degrees that light would bend. So when you see something at 20 miles away, 30 miles away over water, it actually perfectly matches globe predictions based on standard refraction. Because we know standard refraction is 0.5%. And light would only have to bend to see something at 30 miles away at 0.162 degrees.
Okay,
I,
well,
I,
I
can, I can give
appreciate
you access
the
to the model and everything, so you can look around it yourself as well.
yeah, I appreciate your information, and thank you for your time. I definitely gonna have to be here soon. Reason why I sound a little bit tired is I have to get up at 3:30 in the morning, so my typical bedtime is very early, and it's like way past my bedtime right now. So,
Yeah, that's cool. I appreciate you coming
thank,
on. Thank you very much
yeah,
for a
thanks.
civil conversation. Maybe we
Yeah,
can
and
continue it another
thanks.
time.
Yeah, yeah, thanks for just providing me and I'm gonna have to follow up with some of this what you're telling me in these experiments, especially the plumb bob one.
Yeah, it's
I'm
called the
interested in
Scheherian experiment.
facts. I'm interested in facts. I'm interested in putting what I so like I said in the comments. This guy, I'm here to learn. Although I'm definitely offering counters to things. You're really well learned in what you have
Yeah.
learned.
I promise that if
So
we talk again,
appreciate your
I'll
time.
learn more about the rectilinear experiment as well, because that's something if I'm going to talk to people that think the Earth's concave, that is definitely something I need to look into more. So next time we
Big
talk,
one.
maybe we can talk about that a bit more.
Yeah, it's a big one. Okay, thanks, man.
No worries. Have a nice night.
I guess have a good morning. Actually, in the middle, what time is it there? Sorry.
It's just coming up for 2 a.m.
Oh, geez. Okay, man. Get some rest. Bye.
All right, take it easy. Catch you later. Bye bye.
Dude.
Right, well, that was interesting, and once again, from a concave earther, a pretty decent experiment. Team, if you're there, you could jump back in.
Yeah, I literally just jumped on just now because I mean you guys were being civil with one another, and
Yeah.
like I said, I told people in the chat, I was like, yeah, I went in and left because he was already kind of intimidated by some of the questions I was asking and some of the skepticism I was showing. So he was like,
justice?
he's a bully. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you did good. I mean, he didn't really present anything. I mean,
Do you know much about the rectilinear experiment? 'Cause
Yes,
I know
sir.
that is a big thing that concave earthers use.
I've never heard of that
Right.
before tonight. And to be honest with you, it was so much fun in the chat, and I was so disinterested in what that guy was saying. I was just fucking with everybody in the chat.
Yeah, right. So this is the rectilinear experiment. Basically, they built an extremely rigid structure and used it to determine that the Earth was concave. But my research, the little research I've done into it, shows that there was a lot of issues with the construction, and they couldn't really get the results that they wanted because there is no truly rigid structure, I guess. But yeah, it's something I
No,
do
there's
need
no,
to look into
yeah,
more.
there's no, anytime you want to try to make something more rigid, typically, let's say you have a steel bar and you want to make it more rigid, if you're not adding some kind of other chemical nature to it to make it stronger, you're just going to have to try to like make more and more dense steel, like compress it as much and much as you can, make it heavier and heavier so that it's not so flimsy, but by adding weight to it, you then make it more like it wants to bend down even further. It's getting pulled down by gravity even harder. So there's always going to be some kind of bend, even when you take a string and you pull it real tight. Due to gravity, it's going to have some kind of like force down on it, and it's because of its own weight.
Yeah, we didn't
and there's
really
nothing
get
you
into
can do
gravity
about that.
much. I did want to cover, but I know the guy had to leave, so that didn't mind.
Yeah, but I'd have to look into that experiment. I've never heard of it before.
It's
So,
if we're going
I'm
to
new
talk to
to this
concavers, it's definitely something that we need to look at more, because both you and I, like, we know every flat Earth argument there is, and we can debunk it without even thinking. But this is a new area of stupid, so there is new things we have to learn. But
Yeah, but he still was like wrong in a lot of things he said.
of course he was.
If I was writing them down, I'm a little tired right now because I did that video yesterday. But yeah, from what I caught, it's all fucking bad science, man. It's just really all bad science. It's trying to take science. Like when I asked him at the beginning, I was like, "How do you guys explain distant starlight?" And he's like, "Oh, Lord Stephen Christ explained it."
Yeah, Lord Stephen Christ in the mental hospital.
But
for
what
a
does that
reason.
mean? Yeah, like that you're not explaining this observation as something that we observe.
Yeah.
You know, I stand by this. Why can we not send a signal to Africa using a radar, a radio transmitter? Why are they not getting signals in Africa of our radio signals here in Texas, let's say, on the other side?
Yeah.
There's no excuse for that. There should be radio signals on the other side of the Earth that we're constantly receiving from this side of the Earth, if the Earth's concave and circles around on itself. I mean, for the last couple of nights since we've been talking to them, I've kind of got an idea now of how, like, you got to kind of think and really take their arguments and try to look at it from their point of view.
How am
and
I
there's
going to
nothing
counter
to
the
explain
argument
that
they're saying the nature of light is to curve? Because, I mean, all physics disagrees with that. So what would you say would be the best refutation to that assumption?
That's a really in-depth question, because light doesn't really travel in a straight line. It travels out in a sphere from the point source. So when you're talking about the how a photon gets from one place to the next, that's kind of a ridiculous question to ask, not on your behalf, because there's no real answer. It doesn't actually exist as you want to say. There's no path the photon takes, without... Yeah. You have to actually interact with the photon to understand that it has a path or anything like that.
Yeah,
so the question's kind of...
quantum probability, right?
Yes, but it's not going to naturally curve on its own. From the classical standpoint, yes, it does. It travels in a straight line. It's not going to curve on its own. One of the arguments he said that he was saying, well, no, this is an argument, was that there's that there's no true vacuum in space. Well, that doesn't really have anything to do. It's not going to make light just fucking curve, but like you'll see light curve around massive objects, but the vacuum of space isn't going to curve light. That's why I asked the girl yesterday or the day before when she said light naturally curves. I was like, well, does it change? Is it based on your orientation? Like, does it when you're looking at light, does it always curve down? What happens if you get on your head? Does it curve up? And if it does, what's the process that makes the light curve up? Why does it have that direction of preference? If we have two photons coming in and they're naturally curving, are they both curving in the same direction? Well, if they're both curving in the same direction, then there's an explanation for that. If they're curving in random directions, then we should see this. But see, there's never an explanation for any of this. I mean, she didn't even understand what the question meant.
No.
I was trying to explain to her, if you're saying light naturally curves, you have to tell me you have to tell me that it's going to be predictable, and it like how is this happening? Why is it happening the way it is? So if they don't know, they're just saying, they're repeating what other people are saying. It's bad science, and they just don't understand what they're even doing here. No. They're just trying to have a conversation. There's no fucking debating this topic.
I do think that concave earthers are maybe more open to realizing they're wrong than flat earthers.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I don't understand, like, I don't understand how they even come to the conclusions they come to. Like, it just frustrates me. Like, I try to understand it from their point of view, and you just can't. Like, what does it take to be a flat earther? Well, I guess I just don't have the paranoid mindset that a flat earther has to believe that the earth is flat. Because there's no other way to explain it other than to say that you're a paranoid, schizophrenic, conspiratorial idiot. And then I look at concave earthers, and I'm like, okay, well, at least they don't say shit like water can't bend. When anybody can take a water hose and have water come out of it and watch the water stream bend. That's what water is. Water is just individual particles of molecules of water. Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't it be able to bend? Why not? It's not rigid. It's not one solid body. Why would it not be able to bend? That's a dumbass statement to make. So the concave earthers come back and say, yeah, water bends. That's fucking... We know that. Flat earthers are dumb. But it bends upwards. And you're just like, yeah, flat earthers are fucking idiots.
Ding.
But so are you guys. So are fucking you guys. And I would love to continue to have the conversation, but
it's a very different.
It's a different type of conversation.
And I've actually enjoyed it. A refreshing change over the past few days, talking to people with a different idea, and concave earthers also hate flat earthers as much as we do. I do want to address a flat earth more in the chat.
Yeah, right.
Have no sphere, who constantly goes on about, oh, give me a practical demonstration about what you're saying is true. And I think the Wolfie demonstration of the thing on the globe is a pretty good practical demonstration that what I'm saying is true. I can't even find the bit anymore. Yeah, this. But he's like, oh no, that's on a toy globe. I'm like, well, what do you mean by a practical demonstration then? You want me to show you another Earth-size Earth with this happening on? You know, how does the demonstration... This is literally a scaled-down demonstration of what a fiber optic gyroscope registers. You don't get more of a practical demonstration than something like this that literally shows how a fiber optic gyroscope functions. You know, this... I don't like using the word prove because science isn't in the business of proving things, but this is one of the strongest evidences that you can have that we are on a rotating globe, because every fiber optic gyroscope in the world registers what this one is registering on this globe. I mean, how much more of a practical demonstration can I get than that, team?
Oh no, that was a perfect demonstration. But I just want to point out, like that this have no sphere person, right? Like this is the level of people. This is their intelligence level, guys. Okay, the message that was deleted says, but yet you can send signal billions of miles to Voyager, Craigie boy. Haha. Can't get to Africa, but can turn on a dead machine of a 40-year-old technology in space.
Yeah, there isn't.
First
a planet
off,
in the way.
what the fuck are you even talking about? Second, yes, there's no line of sight to Africa, you dipshit. That's why have no sphere. Listen, your comment is the reason why you guys deserve no respect.
Yeah.
Nobody should ever give you the time of day to try to display how stupid you are. We do it because it's entertaining. It's not a scientific debate with you guys. It's a fucking shit on the other person. Fucking yeah. It's a throw this guy in the dumpster and see how much we can shit on him as much as we can to make everybody fucking laugh. And that's what you're good for. You're the fucking court monkey jester that everybody loves to fucking watch.
Sorry,
and your comment
someone's just pointed out that
is indicative of that.
Someone's just pointing out that's not fiber optic gyroscope, it's a ring laser gyroscope. I do apologise. Yeah. But yeah.
Still, it doesn't change the fact that fucking have no sphere is fucking very indicative of the flat Earth movement right there with your comment.
Yeah. What did he just say? Then I missed. He said, "Oh, a plastic globe, is that as good as a model you get? Where's the water sticking to it, Craigie?" Well, the thing is, you fucking moron. If I tried to stick water to that, it would stick to the much bigger sphere below it, because that's how gravity works, and it actually confirms the model that we are talking about. And you know what?
He doesn't. He'll never get that. He'll never get that because he's a fucking flat Earth idiot. He'll just never. It's not that he refuses to believe it, Craig. It's that he's just too fucking stupid to understand what you just said.
Oh yeah,
that's
absolutely. It. Did you see what Tommy?
I mean, I feel bad for him. I feel bad for him. Whatever lead paint that they were fucking accidentally or intentionally fucking exposed to as a baby has led you to be having the lack of neural connections to be able to understand how wrong you are.
Yeah.
Or
absolutely.
You're a fucking Poe. But no normal person is that fucking stupid, have no sphere. Yeah, a normal person is not that fucking stupid. You either have to be trying to be that stupid, or you have to have had a steady diet of lead paint as a baby.
And still now.
And you don't seem like you're trying to be that stupid, have no sphere. You don't seem like you're trying to do it.
You just are.
Maybe you should start asking your parents what model of baby formula they gave you, and whether the tin can they stored it in was lined with lead.
Yeah, they're fucking idiots.
Fucking idiot.
I want to...
That's right.
Yeah. I want to wrap this up soon because MC Toon is debating a globe buster quite soon over on his... I think what's the guy's name? I can't even remember. Wits It Gets It, or sort of whatever his name is. MC Toon's debating him in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to read the super chats and quickly talk about Mark Sargent, and then we're going to get out of here. So I've already read a few of them.
Look, hold on. I want to love this. I like this. It says, keep dancing, Craig. Send in the wee hound. I only speak to Craig. Yeah, that's right. You only speak to Craig because he's the one that's going to be just a tad bit nicer than me. You don't want to fucking talk to me because I'll make you shut up like I made Natalie shut up. You don't want this because you can't handle this. You know that I'm going to come in there. I'm going to shit on you. I enjoy shitting on flat earthers. You
fun.
would be a pleasure. I wouldn't even put a splash guard down for you. Okay? No. I'd just shit all over you.
People are asking for the link.
Okay,
for
I'm done. I'm having fun. Now I'm having fun with it. So.
Okay, guys. So this is the link to MC Toon's debate in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, let's all go over there and sit and hang out with them.
Yeah. So we've got Justin Fallett for 100 Nokias. This whole thing is explained. Just watch the movie Iron Sky: The Coming Race. I will do. Thank you. John Edgren for $2. Free money from me to you. You are. Then doesn't say anything after that. But thank you. I appreciate the money. As I've said, guys, I literally couldn't keep doing this if you guys didn't support me with super chats and channel membership and patronship. It's not all that you are to me. I appreciate every single person that watches my videos and that shares my videos. Obviously, the super chats and stuff do allow me to keep doing this full time. And I could never thank you guys enough for supporting me in the way you do. If you're unable to support me financially, the best way that you can help support me is to share my stuff on Facebook and Twitter and, Bebo, MySpace, or just like paid to get a big billboard or something with my face on. That would work as well. Dracov for $2. How does concave Earth explain outer planets? It's all part of the celestial sphere. End Flatter for $2. I don't know how you tolerate these people, FTFE. You don't know, but after I finish these debates, I go and bang my head against the wall for 5 minutes. Better charge for $5 New Zealand. Is it just me, or is this guy just repeating what the pretty lady said yesterday? Should just reply yesterday, at least she looked okay. Elifaki was a decent conversation as well, and she wants to talk to you, team, so we'll get that sorted out. Inciter for $20 Donkey Kong dollars. If Earth is concave, why can't we see the star? Why can't we see the sun at night? It's on the other side of the celestial sphere. I'm starting to learn the concave arguments. Draco Fire for $2. I really respect what you do, FTFE. Keep it up. I will. I fucking love doing this. I'm not going to stop. Math Science for $2. Show latitude south of equator with greater circle. Didn't get into that. I was going to cover some of that stuff. Dracopool for $10 Canadian. Concave Earthers can't explain why I can't see another continent up the ball. I can't see Europe in the sky. They can't see me. They claim all sort of extreme light refraction, no equations. Yeah, I mean, if the Earth was concave, surely it would look something more like... Oh God, where's it gone? I've got so many things open in here now.
Not to mention, light bends towards the denser medium.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a problem there. Like, when they're talking about all this crazy light bending and having to follow the concavity of the Earth,
so
it
if
doesn't
the Earth
make
was
sense.
concave, wouldn't you be able to see something similar to this? Obviously, this is a ring world from Halo, but if the Earth was concave, you would see it rising into the distance, and you'd be able to look up and see the other side of the world.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm using a video game to describe that. So anyway. $2 from 3Ron.
Not to mention, looking straight up would be where you would have the least amount of bending of light.
Absolutely.
So shooting a laser, like if you shoot a laser, if let's say you had two theodolites that were powerful enough to see a couple of 1,000 kilometers away, that would probably be high enough that you would be essentially both of you would be pointing at each other out of the thickness of the atmosphere. And you'd both be able to shoot a laser to each other or even a radio signal to each other. We can literally bounce radio signals off of fucking Venus right now. So we can easily shoot a radio signal 8,000 kilometers roughly from one side of the concave Earth to the furthest point away from the others from any point on concave Earth should be only be about 4,000 or 8,000 kilometers.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
nothing for a radar.
3-1 for $2. So-called sound frequency can't travel through vacuum. Yeah, and I should have asked him for a definition of frequency because I don't think he knew what it was. Curtis Reynolds for $5. Ask him to look again at the reflection on his cue ball. Now scale that up to 25,000 mile sphere. What does the reflection look like now? It's flat, guys. God, someone's going to clip.
Hey, another thing you should have brought up. Here's something else you should have brought up. On that cue ball, you would have had to have said that the airplane that he was talking about, that his friend was in or whatever, the high altitude, would have been lower than the tallest point on the cue ball from the median average of the heights of the cue ball, like from the lowest height on the outside to the tallest height. The median, if we'd have called that sea level, and she goes up in a plane, she's not going up above what the tallest point is on on the spherical
sorry
cue ball.
to cut you off there, but I'm just looking in the chat on the debate from MC Toon, and Globebusters have just said FE Core just got a new $40,000 fiber optic gyroscope. So
nice! That's awesome. Now they can prove the rotation again.
Yeah, exactly.
They can do it at even a higher price.
Yeah.
That was probably, you know what, $40,000, that was probably 400,000 donations from flat earthers.
Yeah.
10 cents a piece. 10% of their weekly earnings.
NA for $6.66 says FTFE Hail Satan. I think you meant Hail Sagan. Carrie Oliver for $33.33. There is no intelligent argument with any of these guys. They don't listen. Just get ready for the next nah. Shake my head. Thank you, Carrie. It means a lot. Stringer News 1, $1.99. Stringer, awesome to see you back, dude. I know you've taken a bit of a break. Thank you for all the support you've given me. Literally couldn't be doing this without your support, so thank you. Raven Zero for $2. Thanks, FTFE. You're the best. No, fuck you. You're the best. Jackalope Herd Master, thumbs up, $1.99. Thank you. And Stringer News 1 again for $5. Team Skeptic, why can't I get Wi-Fi at the other end of my house?
Because you don't live close enough to Walmart where it's free.
Right, now just before we get off tonight, guys, today on British TV, Mark, I Have No Brain Sargent, was on ITV's This Morning with Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby, whatever her name is. Basically telling Holly that she was being lied to when she spoke to Tim Peaks Live on the ISS and stuff. I want to see if I can get on ITV or on that show to refute the things that Mark has said. If you guys email, if you go to my community section, I've got a post there. If you email ITV from the link I've put in there and tell them that you want FTFE to come on and either refute what Mark Sargent said or even have a conversation with Mark Sargent live if he'll come back. I think the more people that say they want FTFE to get on there, maybe they'll reach out to me and get me onto the show so that I can refute the nonsense that Mark Sargent had the chance to spout on This Morning for like 7 million viewers. So yeah, please, FTFE, hashtag get FTFE on TV. Go to my community section, the link's in there. A couple more super chats. NA for $2 says, no, I meant Satan. Well then, hail Satan. And John Rapp for $2 Australian. Good on you, mate. How was that? Oh, also everyone say hello to John Rapp in the correct way. But yeah, thanks very much, guys, for watching. It's been an absolutely fantastic show. MC Toon is just about to start his debate with a Globebuster. So please go to the link I posted in the chat.
Let's go watch that.
Yeah. I'm also going to be debating this guy. I've been talking to him in email. Apparently he doesn't respect me because I'm mean to flat earthers. Oh, I was mean to the flat earthers.
Fucking
team.
bully.
Well, you
Dude,
know what?
I'm telling you, man.
Stop being
I'm
fucking
telling
idiots.
you. I'm just gonna start fucking bullying them with math. I'm just gonna have a math joke. Like just now, I said, "Oh man, you know they got their $40,000 gyroscope or $50,000, whatever the fuck they're lying ass about the money cost gyroscope from getting 10-cent blowjobs in a fucking Walmart bathroom." That's what they did to get their ass. Yeah, I'm gonna start bullying them with math.
What do they think this $40,000 one is going to tell them that the $20,000 one didn't? Like,
Well, I mean,
Yeah, it's definitely still rotating.
I'm telling
Fucking
nothing.
hell, man. But guys,
God.
that's been
All right,
fun for tonight.
let's go.
Tomorrow I have a new video coming out about Howard the Stupid. Team just released a video today about D-Marble, so make sure you guys go and check that out. But in the meantime, remember,
Yeah.
stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth.
Fight the flat, fight the flat, fight the flat, fight the flat.